Good morning, gladiators. Today we are starting something new. We're looking at relationships between angles, okay? So last year in 5th grade, you guys learned a little bit about right angles, acute angles, and obtuse angles. And you saw that a little earlier on the video this week. But today we're going to talk about two or maybe three new ones that you haven't really learned about so far, and that's straight angles, complementary angles, and supplementary angles. Okay, so first let's look at our vocabulary at the top of your notes page here. Okay, so straight angles. Straight angles are simply one angle. You notice there's no other line here. There's just one angle going from left to right, and it forms a straight line essentially, and so that is a straight angle also. When it is 180 degrees from one side to the other, we're going to call that a straight angle. That is half of a full circle, 180 degrees. Okay, so there's no two, it's just one angle, it's not two separate angles. Okay, conversely, if we look at the next one, we call that a supplementary angles. Call those supplementary angles, but these are actually two angles that form 180 degrees. Okay, so they create a straight angle, but it takes two of them. Notice this line here shows that there's two separate angles. We have one angle here and we have one angle here. Now, this side is obtuse. And we know if it's obtuse, that means that it's greater than 90 degrees. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Okay? But the two together, if I take whatever this one is and I add it to whatever this one is, then the whole thing together is going to give me 180 degrees. Okay? So supplementary angles, those are two. Supplementary angles form straight angles. Okay, so supplementary equals straight. That's going to help you remember that. The S in supplementary, the S in straight. Okay, now our last one that we're going to look at here is complementary angles. Complementary angles, again, are two angles together. So if you notice, this one looks like a right angle. Okay, so you notice this creates a right angle, which means that it is 90 degrees. Complementary angles are two angles that when you add them up, they equal 90 degrees, or a right angle, and they are called complementary. But the important part, the difference between the complementary and the right, is that a right angle is just one angle that forms that 90 degrees. This is two angles that forms that 90 degrees. Okay, so let's look at a couple that we can find the value of x. So right before we left for spring break, you guys worked on one-step equations, and so the way that we're going to solve these is we're going to set them up as one-step equations. Okay, so if we look at this first one, we first want to decide what kind of angles are these. Well, I notice I have a straight line, but I do have this line bisecting the angles. So now I have two separate angles, and if I have two separate angles that make a straight line, I actually have a supplementary angle. Okay, I have a supplementary set of angles. Okay, because they form that straight line, they are supplementary, and they together form 180 degrees. Okay, so this is 180 degrees. So whatever the degrees are here, this case it's 118. If I add that to x, then this should equal 180. Okay, so to solve that, I'm just going to set my equation up just like that. This is 118 plus x is going to be equal to 180. Okay? Then we are going to solve that just like we did before we left for spring break. So I have, this is a positive, so to undo that, I'm going to subtract 118 from both sides. And then when I have 180 minus 118, then 10 minus 8 is 2, 7 minus 1 is 6, 1 minus 1 is 0. So this is going to cancel, and I have x equals 62 degrees. So this side over here is 62 degrees. Okay? All right, let's look at the next one. So you notice the next one has a right angle. It's forming a right angle, but I do have two lines. So this is not a right angle. This is actually a set of complementary angles. These are complementary angles. And together, complementary angles always form 90 degrees. Okay? So again, we know that this side is 36. If I add it to whatever's on this side, I should equal 90 degrees. So I'm just going to set up my equation like that. So x plus 36 equals 90. Okay? Then I have a one-step equation. Split my equation into two sides. I've got addition. To undo that, I'm going to subtract. That cancels. Subtract 36. And off to the side, I will subtract 36. 10 minus 6 is 4. 8 minus 3 is 5. So in this case, x equals 54 degrees. Okay? Sorry, I always tell you how to box them in, and then I'm not boxing them in. All right, next one. Again, you can see right away that we have a right angle formed, but I do have two separate angles. So this one is also complementary. And it should equal 90 degrees. Okay? So again, I'm just going to set up my equation. X plus 55 has to be equal to 90 degrees. Split my equation into two sides. I'm going to undo my addition here by subtracting 55. So when I have 90 minus 55, that gives me 35. So x equals 35 degrees. And my last one here is going to be a straight line, but again, I have those two angles, so it's not a straight angle. This one actually is a supplementary angle. And it should form 180 degrees to make that straight line. Okay? So, again, we just set this up as an equation. 58 plus x is going to be equal to 180. To undo this, I need to subtract 58 from both sides. Undo our little math off to the side here. 10 minus 8 is 2. 7 minus 5 is also 2. And we still have 1 there. So x equals 122 degrees. Okay? So this is how we find the value of x when we have complementary and supplementary angles.